Hey there, today I'm going to be talking about my current Avengers roster, which also happens to be the one I'm using at a 64-person event tomorrow at Adepticon. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. Now, you might be asking, Nate, don't you want to keep your list and game plan a secret to anyone who you might be playing against tomorrow or this weekend? And the correct answer is probably, but if I was really that concerned, I also would have stress tested this list a lot more. I'm really just going out and excited to meet new people and have a weekend of rolling dice. But before I get into my Avengers team, I do want to give a couple of shout outs to the guild sponsors, Tritex Games based in the EU, and War Room Hobbies based here in Tennessee. Both are great local gaming stores that have game nights at their stores and are supporting their local communities. So if you are shopping online anyways, consider using them as an option to support a local gaming store instead of a big warehouse company. And to help beat those warehouse companies' prices, I do have some codes that will save you even more off of Tritex's and War Room Hobbies' already discounted prices. If you use the code TritexGGCP5 at checkout, you will save an extra 5% off from Tritex's MCP selection, and if you check out at War Room Hobbies, you can use the code MCP2022 for an extra 10% off of your order. And even though we don't have a release date yet, Nick Fury, Daredevil, and Elektra are now all up for pre-order with those previously mentioned discounts. But if you are already shopping from your LGS, that's awesome. Keep supporting them, we understand. But if you are wanting a way to support the Guild's videos or podcasts, check out our Patreon page. For $1 a month or $12 a year, you can continue to help us put out more content for Marvel Crisis Protocol as podcast and here on YouTube. We also have a monthly giveaway thanks to Tritex. All you need to do to enter is be subscribed to the channel and leave a comment on a video the same month that video was released. Alright, and now that all has that been said, let's take a look at my Avengers roster. First off, we have Captain America, Steve Rogers. He has seen a nice buff since the first days of playing with him, and his changes are all quite welcome. His shield throw hits harder and gets a guaranteed power. His strike and even more importantly, his shield slam have had their push and throw moved up to size 3, and he took no nerfs. So Cap hits harder, still takes a punch pretty well, and most importantly for this roster, still has that value town of a leadership. And just in case you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to read it out real quick because most of my roster revolves around this ability. A day unlike any other says, each turn you may reduce the cost of the first superpower used by each allied character by 1 to a minimum of 1. Now, unfortunately, this still doesn't apply to superpowers with a cost of X, but because this leadership says the first superpower used each turn, it means that this can kick in multiple times over a single round. So I have several defensive abilities that will let me be able to reduce the cost of their superpower multiple times. And there is always a reduction that can happen on their own turn as well. So Steve himself is a pretty good all-comer. He doesn't like missed attacks, so we try and stay away from those. But otherwise, Steve is here to make sure other characters get their own activations to pop off. And if Steve does get to go, he can easily shove enemy characters off secure objectives, or just build power by tossing his shield around while getting in some chip damage. I also will say, once Healthy Steve has taken a few points of damage, I'm going to start bodyguarding as often as I can. Not so much because it's protecting other characters, but because I would really rather him go into a round on his injured side where he becomes very hard to kill and is able to start taking even more for his team rather than just having him only on 2 health where one attack can pick him off. And really, he would just not be providing much help at all at that point. As for where I use Steve, well, just about everywhere since he is the only leader. And again, this team is kind of focused around the value town of his leadership. My next 2 characters are classics from the first few months of the game's release, and that is Black Panther and Vision. These are 2 characters who can get an enemy model off a middle objective turn 1 thanks to the leadership. Both are pretty durable, and both can hit pretty hard. Panther is great for his single target damage because 1 power for 2 attacks with a full reroll is amazing, not to mention the pounce. Vision and his range 4 beam, on the other hand, is great for objectives like Gamma or Research Station, where he will often be hitting 3 or more targets. Not to mention he can begin throwing enemies into one another for more area damage. And then he also just ends up sitting on a ton of power for his awesome spender or other tactic cards that you could play like Field Dressing or Follow Me. At least one of these two makes it into every single game because of how good and versatile they are. Rounding out my 4 threat characters is then Brother Voodoo. He is a bit of a menace to the world, and so sure, he is in there for that reason, but also mostly because he is an affiliated character that's 4 threat and has character displacement and mystic attacks, which the Avengers are pretty short on outside of Wanda, but then you're also paying more threat and missing out on the character reposition. Voodoo has some really strong control game, and it can be great to have, but for the most part, I end up using his power to either beat people with his staff or save for some tactic cards. I typically make sure to bring Voodoo in when I'm facing a team that has mystic vulnerabilities, like the current X-Men with Laura and Gabby, Wakanda, and teams like the Web Warriors. As well, any extract where there is only one objective, or characters can hold multiple objectives. So if someone gets a stack of a couple of hammers, or finds that valuable Kree core, Voodoo can force them to drop it. But otherwise, I usually will take Panther or Vision in the lineup, and it always just kind of flows and adjusts depending on points, scenario, opponent, etc. As for my other affiliated characters, I have Luke Cage and Iron Man. They are both nice and durable 3 threats that are affiliated, but will rarely see each other on the board together unless we are playing Mutant Madman, because the more physical defense that you have, the better. Each of these characters are going to just be my 3 threat in slot points when I need them at different totals. And they have different jobs. Iron Man is here for damage and control mostly. You can only use Ricochet Blast once in a game, but for 3 total power, you get 9 dice with a full reroll. That's going to hurt, and is great to even put a dent in the tougher characters out there like Hulk or She-Hulk. And maybe even just trying to get Thanos onto his injured side a bit more quickly. On the other side of that, Luke Cage offers my team another durable bodyguard to help split attacks and throw off more attrition-based teams like Brotherhood and Black Order, especially when he's able to bring heroes for hire into the mix. Then my final affiliated team member is Hulk. I don't know, I don't feel like there's much that needs to be said about him at this point after his buffs, but he shines in the lower threat matchups, and he's going to be a constant threat to my opponent whether they are trying to pile on damage or not. Hulk is a little bit dice reliant, but I also have had a game on Gamma where Hulk KO'd 3 characters and dazed the remaining character on the opposing team with the first activation of round 3. The guy is just a monster now, and if you haven't tried him since the updates, give him a try. So that leaves me 3 spots that I haven't talked about yet, and these are my unaffiliated ones. They go to Loki with the Mind Gem, Black Cat, and Bullseye. So speaking of monsters like the Hulk, Loki is one of those in Avengers as well. He has a very large toolkit and will either get focused down, which is fine because he's even more of a nightmare on his backside, or your opponent tries to ignore him, in which case he is free to put out attacks that count blanks as successes, and with a double tap that can finish off most characters that have that base 3s across the board for defensive stats. The Mind Gem gives him an element of control for just 1 power, and then on turn 1, the 2 remaining power can be used to Trickster or I'm a God defensively, not to mention interact and grab objectives. Bullseye is then a 2-threat character that is here to splash in with Iron Man or Luke Cage. As well, Bullseye excels on that objective since he gets to ignore cover that the scenario itself provides. There is a chance here that Toad is the better choice, but a lot of my team is more attrition-based, and Bullseye helps out with that game plan. And so then we come to Black Cat. She rarely makes the cut into my games because I really only like her to come in and lay down the stagger on big damage dealers like Corvus or a 6-threat character like Hulk or Magneto, but I don't often find space for her in those matchups. Rather, I focus on her ability to steal extracts, which is very powerful, and can be the deciding factor in the right game. So, like Voodoo, she comes in when there is a single extract to hold, but is really coming in more often against teams that are more focused on quickly scoring points while not being overly aggressive themselves to help keep the score in my favor. So, matchups with Web Warriors and Criminal Syndicate, just as a couple of examples. One character that I really wish I had room for in this list is Hood, because he does really well with Steve's leadership and provides me more access to mystic attacks, but I'm just unsure of who I would cut for him at this point. But he's been a lot of fun to play alongside Steve. If I wasn't super worried about Black Order, I might drop Luke for him, but alas. As for my Crisis cards, I'm bringing Mutant Madman, Gamma Shelters, and Spider Portals. These secures 1, because I like flip objectives because my team has power discounts, and so Mutant Madman and Spider Portals help stretch that power difference even further, and 2, because Black Order, Web Warriors, and Criminal Syndicate don't traditionally like flip secures, and these are the matchups that I am most worried about. Gamma is there because, well, I have a fearsome 3 on 15 Gamma with Hulk, Steve, and Loki. Is it good? I have no clue, but it's a lot of fun to play. As for my extracts, I'm bringing Researcher, much for the same reason as Gamma. I just have a list that I really like when things are forced to be close together. Then I also have Hammers and Montesi Formula. I like these because I have characters who can really get the most bang out of the buck for these. For example, Vision or Panther with Hammers just makes their base attacks even better. So when Vision has a beam attack that hits 3 people, 1 hammer really translates into 3 extra dice rolled. Loki and Black Panther both have attack consistency in their superpowers, so adding more dice is just that much more powerful. Similarly, characters that buff their attacks can do fun things with the Montesi beam. This primarily is going to apply to Iron Man and Black Panther, whose power expenditure will apply to all of the attacks made with that beam. So Iron Man gets a 1 power 8-die beam, while Panther's beam will also now get full rerolls. So these extracts tend to go towards what I'm looking for as far as that attrition game plan goes. And here was the hardest part of the narrowing process for me, oddly enough, the tactic cards. There are just so many good ones, and ones that I want to have for specific situations, or niche cards to surprise an opponent with. So my staples are Avengers Assemble, Medpack, and Field Dressing. Because my team leans heavily into some attrition, having the ability to get my team to stand back up or healing up a tanky character like Panther or Steve is very important. The rest of my cards are a bit more of a game-by-game situational. Advanced R&D can come in for Black Cat for a turn 1 objective steal. Heroes for Hire and Ricochet Blast come in with their 3 threats. Mission Objective comes in with those single extract objectives that are so valuable. Indomitable is great when facing down a team with a bunch of throws or pushes, like Web Warriors or Wakanda. Another card I bring for the Web Warriors is Marked for Death to stop those rerolls and turn off stealth on annoying characters like Miles and Black Cat. And my final spicy tech piece is Blind Obsession. I might end up trading this for Follow Me, but right now on a wide map at a lower point value, it helps guarantee you one side of the map. I've had it win over many other losing fights after one of my characters gets dazed, Vision versus a Ghost Rider, my Baron Zemo versus a Beast, but probably my favorite was when Sooners Black Panther managed to daze my Captain America turn 1 with a Pounce and Strike, but then got to come back and play Blind Obsession and took 3 more points of damage for the rest of that game, and 2 of those were from Shuri. So this is what I am bringing to tomorrow's event, and I'm hoping to have some fun with. If you have enjoyed my thoughts and are new to the channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button for a weekly dose of MCP content in the form of reviews, battle reports. As well, you can also find the Gamer Guild podcast on several different podcast platforms and apps. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.